At the bottom of 197, I want you guys to pay attention to Old Man Warner. He says, pack of crazy fools, listening to the young folk. Nothing's good enough for them. Next thing you know, they'll be wanting to go back to living in caves, nobody working anymore, live that way for a while. Used to be a saying about lottery in June, corn be heavy soon. First thing you know, we'll be eating stewed chickweed and acorns. There's always been a lottery. There's a lot to gather out of that. First of all, Old Man Warner is just like Miss Emily, right? It's an old man obsessed with tradition. And of course, the young folk trying to change or wanting to change that tradition are crazy. And he said, I mean, look what he says. Try that for a while. Soon we'll be living in caves or going back to living in caves. Well, we see that as an audience, as a reader. We know that getting rid of the lottery is progress. That would be a good thing. That would be forward momentum. Living in a cave would be that's regressing, right? So Mr. Warner clinging to these old and violent and useless and inhumane traditions sees progress as actually taking a step back, which again is common. We also this is the only insight we really get into why why the town has the lottery in the first place, why the lottery exists. And it says, lottery in June, corn be heavy soon. And what you can gather, the only thing that we can gather is that possibly this was some kind of sacrificial ritual that had been in place for a very, very long time, which, throughout the history of civilization, this has been a very common thing to sacrifice someone to the gods or the gods of nature so that there would be a good planting season or a good harvesting season. And really that's all the insight we have as to why it may be, or why they have the lottery. Other than that, we don't know. And even then, I mean, that people have people should realize that you don't need to sacrifice an innocent person for heavy rains or for good soil. But ultimately it doesn't matter, because all they care about is that it's been that way, and that's the way it should continue to be. Now, going through, now Miss Hutchinson has a problem. Miss Hutchinson thinks that the lottery isn't fair. Do you guys think that Miss Hutchinson was right? I want you to ask yourself that, because ultimately we'll see that it's not that it's not fair. I mean, obviously it is an unfair practice, but Miss Hutchinson only cares that it's unfair because it happened to her. If it wouldn't have happened to her, if it would have happened to another family, I mean, then she wouldn't have cared. It's just, like I said, it just sucks when it happens to you. But if it doesn't happen to you, you're okay with it. This again has everything to do with tradition and the problems of clinging to inhumane or unjust traditions and practices that we don't take care of ourselves. We don't find it necessary to change simply because it doesn't affect us. Again, just like a Rose for Emily, and a big racism in the South, right? If you're white, why bother changing racial equality, or why bother working for racial equality if it doesn't affect you? Well, we know that we should, just because it's the right thing to do, but that's not exactly reality. That's not what happens, right? That's one of the reasons that it has taken so long for progress, simply because if it doesn't, so many people, or if it doesn't affect me, why should I concern myself with it? I've got other things to do. Miss Hutchinson is no different. It's an example of that until it happens to her. And again, another question would be, well, yeah, and it's only a matter of time. If there is something unjust, or if there is a hurtful practice or tradition going on, eventually it is only a matter of time before it will turn around and bite those that do nothing about it. Even if they're not affected presently, in the future, there's a very good possibility that they will be affected. So she ultimately they said at the end of the story, it says they were on her like a pack of, I'm sorry, they were upon her, and then they were upon her, and then you can imagine like a pack of hungry wolves or something, just descending upon her. A couple paragraphs up, it says the children had stones already, and someone gave little Davy Hutchinson a few pebbles. They training him young, early, just like we are trained at a very, very early age. And he is throwing pebbles, at his mother. And in my lecture classes, I'll joke about my father. The first time I went hunting with my dad when I was 4 years old or something, and I had just a little BB gun, and I was hunting with my dad. And my dad shot a deer, and I went up to it after we tracked it down, and it was dead. And I went up to it with my little BB gun, and shot it with the BB gun, just to be like my dad and all that stuff. But ultimately, the BB didn't, obviously the deer was already dead, didn't do anything. But it's just that idea of training from a very young age, or that experience to eventually, when it comes time to do it yourself, it's like it's always been there, like it's not a big deal. And we see that with Davy Hutchinson. Now, the thing also that you need to ask yourself, obviously it's about groupthink versus individual think here, and we'll see that the groupthink is obviously overpowering, and the ability to lose oneself in groupthink is a very, very easy thing to do. And we all know that. I mean, we all went through puberty. We went through junior high and high school. We know this is peer pressure. We know what peer pressure is. But it goes beyond that. It's accepting something because it's the way it always is, and it always will be that way. Yes, it's about losing oneself in a group, because, again, you put people in a group, and they will do things that they would never, ever, ever do individually. And it also seems that Jackson is kind of tapping into the idea of are people basically good, or are they basically bad? Are people basically good or evil? And a lot of people tend to think that people are basically good. And I'm not asking, do people choose? Do people make good decisions, or do they make decisions to be bad? That's a different debate. But inherently, born into this world, are people basically good, or are they basically bad? And I'm not going to answer that for you. You can have your own opinion. But the only thing that I would ask, and I think I know the same thing that Jackson would ask, is if you put two infants in a room together alone, they both have, same parenting styles, and good, solid upbringing, loving family, loving household, and you give one of those infants, a toy, and the other one doesn't get one, what do you think will happen? Well, the one that doesn't have a toy is going to go get it from the baby that has a toy. The baby that has a toy is going to try to keep it, and they'll probably have a fight. Not only will they have a fight, I can almost 100% guarantee it, they'll probably bite each other. And again, most likely their parents don't have arguments at the house and settle them with a biting contest. That's just human nature. That's part of the inherent flaw of humanity, right? And at the very base level, I see something, I want it, I'll get it. Because babies, infants, they have no concept of consequence. They don't understand the ramifications of their actions. I ask my students all the time in class, if there were no man-made laws, if there were no laws, if there were no financial or monetary fines, if there was no jail, no prison system, not only if there were no man-made laws, but if there were no belief in any kind of religious or karmic consequences or God made laws. If people didn't believe in a heaven or hell, if they didn't believe in reincarnation, if there was nothing, how do you think that society would operate? And the response that I always get is that society would basically eat itself. The people would eat each other. They would kill each other. If there's no consequences and they have something that they want or they see something they want, most people would, by and large, instinctively go get it any means necessary because there would be no consequences. And again, that's human nature. I mean, that's not a big deal. I mean, that's not a huge discussion topic. But and Jackson's not really even discussing that. What Jackson is discussing is that we have that base human nature, right? Which is, in Jackson's opinion, not good. The idea with this group versus the individual and losing yourself in the group is how willing, because she uses violence here. Violence is that's why I use the example with the kids. Violence is one of the most base and base and basic human emotions and actions, and we every day people struggle to keep or people work to control and to exercise control over their basic desires. And when given the opportunity to kind of let that out, if in a group of people, if it's if it's openly accepted to throw stones at an innocent woman or an innocent victim, and you are pushed or it's accepted for you to do the same, knowing that it's wrong, how easily do we let those things go? How easily will we slip into that darker side? Because I can guarantee you, at some point today, at a junior high or a high school or elementary school, there was a group of kids that were picking on a weaker kid, and at some point, another kid walked by that group, and for no reason, well, for a reason, obviously, but stopped by, watched what was going on, and participated in mocking or hazing or whatever, but just participated in that group action of violence, just simply because that's human nature. Now, as adults, we're supposed to know the difference. We do know the difference between those two things. And again, Jackson wants you to question how easily will we allow ourselves to slip in, to let those restraints go. If you've got everyone around you exercising these, like I said, very deep and dark and basic human emotions and like the violence and the dark bad things that we have inside of us, if everyone else is letting those out and it's accepted, how easy